Hi, I'm Tim May, and I'm moderating this series of 10 conversations on expressive photography with Phil Douglas. Phil understands the nature of expressive photography as well as anyone I know. For 35 years, he directed the Douglas Visual Workshops, and he helped more than 10,000 communications professionals make and use photographs to express ideas, tell stories, and convey meaning. Phil says he's learned a great deal from those workshop participants over the years, and he also enjoys learning from the tens of thousands of images he's made in more than 60 countries. I first met Phil uh, at Santa Fe Workshops in 2004, and we went on to photograph together across North America, as well as in Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America. Both Phil and I have displayed our images on various photographic websites, and Phil has put together a 5,000 image cyberbook on expressive photography at pbase.com. You can find the link to that cyberbook in the notes below. It has drawn more than 10 million visitors since he started in 2003. They have left more than 12,000 comments under his pictures, and Phil has answered each one of them. When the pandemic brought Zoom into our lives, I asked Phil to bring that cyberbook to life in this set of 10 conversations on expressive photography, and now he has. Enjoy.
And today's topic is meaning is in the details. And there's a famous saying, I believe it was Mies van der Rohe, the famous architect, who said, God is in the detail. And of course, he meant ultimate meaning can be found in the smallest things. And in a photograph, we have an abundance of details, and every one has the potential to convey meaning or not. And so let's take a look now at how we learn to control and manage the use of detail in expressive photography.
Whoa.
This image I made in Arica, Chile, and it's a very high hill known as El Moro. It was the site of a tremendous battle between Chile and Peru and Bolivia. These three countries fought over land, mining rights, and oceanfront views back in the 1880s and 1890s. It was called the Pacific War. And it was essentially a partnership between Bolivia and Peru against Chile, and Chile won. And I'm in Chile, and they commemorate the Battle of El Moro when Peruvian troops garrisoned the top of this mountain or hill, and Chilean troops charged up that hill and took it. And today, the Chilean flag, huge flag, flies from the top. And I made this picture mainly because of what was happening in the sky. The fantastic array of clouds overhead create a matrix of symbols. It was like surging power is emanating from that summit. And there's the flag. The flag is the detail. Notice that it only takes up probably 1/500th or 1/1000th maybe of this picture, but it's instantly visible because of the red color. And of course, the blue and the white portions are visible as well, but it's the flag that flying through the wind. If the wind hadn't been blowing, I could not have made this picture.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I understood that. Tim?
Well, it speaks to me of history. Of course, you've given me the history, but it just kind of how large the hill is, how big the victory was, but in the overall path of history, it's a little event in the overall history of mankind or humankind, but still, Chile won. There they are.
Won, and they picked up a territory that had belonged to both Peru and Bolivia, including the shoreline of Bolivia, so that Bolivia remains a landlocked country to this day. And to bring goods into Chile by ship, they still have to pay import taxes to Chile.
Right, to bring it into Bolivia. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, to make this picture, I had to raise the camera up above the bottom, just below the bottom edge of this photograph is a huge parking lot, and that would have killed the picture.
Yes.
It killed it. And so I had to raise it till I got the parking lot out of the frame.
Yep. Powerful. Nice.
I made this photograph I made in Vancouver on Granville Island in British Columbia. And this is known as False Creek. And when you came to this picture, Tim, on my website, on PBase, my instructional website, you left a comment. And a part of that comment was a wonderful quote. I found it yesterday when I was looking at the pictures that I'd be discussing today on my website and looking at the comments that have come in on these pictures through the years. And on November 20th, 2009, you said, "Today is built upon yesterday, and tomorrow is built upon today. Yet we might need to use caution in dealing with it all." I love that quote. And this picture is essentially about a piece of caution tape.
Right.
Which again takes up only a tiny part of this picture.
Right.
But it's in faded yellow. It's on that piling. At one time, there must have been an incident or an accident that they were warning people away from this area, and they had strung the caution tape. And of course, they cut the tape when it was solved, and it's been there for maybe months or years. And I saw it, and again, I'm always looking for detail that would resonate when juxtaposed with a larger surrounding, a larger context. And that's what I did with the Chilean flag in the previous image. And that's what I'm doing here with these pilings and the water, the reflections in the water, and the caution tape. And of course, the caution tape is yellow. And that, again, remember that in photography, we have 3 prime colors. And I will talk about this at length in my module on color. But red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. And in the Chilean flag, we had red and blue working. And here we have yellow working. Because it really is, even though it's somewhat faded, it is still contrasting. The detail contrasts, it doesn't fade in. So not only do we have to consider how detail is sized in a photograph and where it is placed in a photograph, but how resonant it is in terms of its visibility. Tim, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, I'm seeing there is blue in the corrugated metal. I, of course, am impressed with the erosion and the wear, but also you'll probably get to this more in composition. But the fact of the line of the yellow matching the line throughout the whole image, like a horizon of those light blues and the dark blues.
Yes, in other words, it's rhythmic repetition, which is an important principle. Can you see my cursor, Tim? Just want to be
Yes,
sure.
I do. But also I'm talking about if you extend the yellow of the ribbon to the left, it goes right along that cut in the dark and light on the wall. Do you see?
Here?
Yeah, see, there's a line that goes right across the top third of the image.
Oh, the top third of the image. Oh, I see what you're talking about. You're talking about the old
Right.
water line.
Yes.
Yeah, it's it's obvious that the water level has receded here,
Right.
and this area here was formerly underwater.
Well, and the ribbon matches it.
Yes,
That's what I'm, yeah,
yes, the placement of the ribbon equals the former
right.
water level of this creek. This is a close-up of detail. I made this in the Vienna Historical Museum. It's the pistol that was used to assassinate Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria by Gavrilo Princip in Sarajevo. He was a Bosnian, um, uh, they called him a terrorist, but he was actually a patriot. He felt that that the Austrian emperor had to be killed in order to pave the way for his country's independence from Austria. And so he killed him. And the rest is history, because the First World War began because of that.
Right.
This,
Move your cursor. There we go.
this
Okay.
trigger, Princip's finger on this trigger not only killed Franz Ferdinand, but it led to the deaths of millions of people all over the world. And today this gun is in a case in a museum, this pistol. It's a Browning automatic. And I came in very closely to show you the elegant detail, the styling. I mean, this is a lethal weapon. It was used to murder a king. And when you have that context, everything changes, of course.
Right.
But when you look at it, you see the care that the manufacturer takes to emblazon, the name of the company, the logo, on the metal. But you have to come very close with a close-up lens or a lens capable of coming this close. I had to rest my lens on the glass case. And just as I did so, a guard came running over, screaming in German, 9-9.
Right.
I said, photography. And he almost had a fit. Then I apologized, of course, because I had already made the picture. It's always better to ask it's always better to beg forgiveness than to ask permission.
And for me, the thing that stands out now, again, so far, basically, two of these images are a little bit dependent on the history, which I imagine you could do through a title or a caption. Right. But for me, just coming to it, without that history, it's that little place at the end of the finger grip that almost looks like a little finger, and over to the right, down at the bottom of that. That speaks of the human involved with this gun. It looks worn, and like that's where the finger was to shoot that gun. That's the detail that sticks out to me in that image.
Yeah, you can imagine, and again, this is fanciful, this is pure fantasy, but I can think of Gavrilo Princip back there in 1914, sweating profusely as he awaits Franz Ferdinand, and the sweat is being obviously placed on the trigger right here.
Right.
That's partially rusted.
Right.
I'm reaching, I know, but again, a photograph, an expressive photograph, should stimulate the imagination.
Right.
And that's what this does for me, because of the detail that you would normally overlook. You say, oh, that's the pistol. But you wouldn't bring your face close and look at these little details. And I do. When you force the viewer to come in and confront detail like I'm doing here, they see something that they might not have ever noticed otherwise. Mm-hmm. And that's why macro photography, which is a whole branch of photography where you're able to come in so close that you can reveal things that the human eye really can't perceive, but the optics of the camera can. And right. So you take the viewer where by showing detail that they otherwise could not see.
Right.
There's a monument in the center of Santa Fe,
Cursor,
New Mexico.
cursor, okay.
There's a monument in the center of Santa Fe, in the plaza, the famous plaza there. Uh, and it's, you can't get in to read the inscription close up. You have to stand outside the gate. There's a metal fence all the way around, and there's a large chain that holds the fence together. And I come in on that, give you a sense of detail on the chain, excuse me, on the chain itself. But you also can vaguely see, softly focused here, an inscription that gives you context of why we need this fence. To the heroes who have fallen in the various battles with, and then there's a part chiseled out, and it once said savage, Indians in the territory of New Mexico. And today, of course, the Indians or the Native Americans are no longer considered savages, and that would be an insult, so authorities have removed that.
Well, and given the current things, they might want to take out heroes also, but.
Exactly. In other words, monuments change in time. Right now, there's a huge controversy over, right, Confederate monuments. Times change, and as times change, perceptions of monumentalization change, and they all have chisels, to take off the offensive words or take away the whole monument. But if you look closely, you'll see water is dripping. It's raining, and the whole fence appears to be weeping.
Right. That's
And
what I just thought. Yes.
That was also detail that I include by coming in very close to a portion of that fence. I would venture to guess that this monument is photographed, maybe several hundred times a day by tourists. And most people stand back to get the whole thing in because they want to say, this is what it looks like. But an expressive photographer wants to do more than describe. They want to emphasize details to expand or interpret or express meaning. And that's what I'm doing here.
And in this particular case, the history's right there.
Yes.
It's not dependent on knowing that the pistol was used to do such and such.
That's right. Exactly. So it's wise to always keep in mind that a photograph does not exist in a vacuum. It's always seen in a context, in someone's photo album, on a wall with a caption, in a book with a story. It's always accompanied by potential context. It does not exist all by itself, floating in space somewhere. You and I were in Cabrillo National Park many years ago in San Diego, and we were photographing, what were the yuccas? And it's the first time I got close enough to a yucca to see how lethal it really is. And I'm emphasizing here the points that nature has given this plant to keep people from using it, to keep people from killing it. It's the protective device.
Right.
Nature provides. And you don't necessarily see that when you look at the whole plant. But when you move in to reveal details like this, everything changes.
Two things come to mind for me about this. One of them is related to the previous picture, but I want to talk about this one because it raises the issue for me of you're in black and white. Right. So basically you're abstracting.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is that these things that we're talking about aren't necessarily in isolation. This image is going to be abstraction. This one's going to be incongruity. It's a unification of the various elements. It's not. Absolutely. It's not just one is there. The previous one, though, I wanted to ask you a question about.
Do you want me to go back?
Yeah, just for a quick question. Okay, when you were making this image, did you frame it that way with that purpose, or did that happen later in post-processing when you look through your work that you had?
No, this is the full frame.
No,
This,
that I know that, but did you frame it with those ideas of the weeping wall, etc., in your mind when you were making it?
it's difficult to remember what was in my mind 15 years ago when I made this picture. However, I can tell you that what drew me to it was the chain link fence. That was what attracted me, the chain link on the fence.
Right.
And I came in on those links. And as I was framing this picture, I saw that the softly focused inscription was right behind it. And at that point, I remember thinking about the reason why you have the chain there, to keep angry Native Americans from further doing damage to the inscription, or anyone else for that matter, is to protect the inscription. That's why those links are there.
Yeah,
And because of that, I was there. Later on, I noticed that it's weeping.
Right.
Then I noticed the carved out part.
Right. The thing that my point is that expression as expressive photography happens both in the making of the picture and the editing and processing.
Absolutely.
It's not an either or.
Absolutely. And in fact, when you are editing pictures and you're selecting, I mean, you and I shoot 50, 60, or 5 or 10 photographs of something, and then we look at all of them and say, which one best expresses what I'm trying to say?
Right, right.
And that's in the editing process.
Yeah, and then, yeah, I make a distinction between editing and processing.
Yeah.
And that's part of the editing process.
That's right. That's right. I was on a cruise, a European cruise, and we were in the town of Falmouth, England, for a day. And there's this mall that's called George's Arcade, and it's named after St. George, who killed the dragon. As you can see down here, there he is on the white horse and with his sword out, and he's straddling the dragon. You can see the dragon's claw, or the face. And if you look closely, the detail up here, you can see 1902 kind of superimposed when this building was built. And it's insane. And of course, the top is crossed off here. Whoops. But here it says hall. So when I saw that, I realized that this was a historic building. This was built at the turn of the last century. And it wasn't built as a shopping mall. It was obviously built as a gathering place, a theater or a civic hall, auditorium. And it was named St. George's Hall. So it's a multi-purpose building. And you see that by looking at the detail. And again, this is really an interesting contrast of detail, because you have a legend of St. George and the dragon. It's a very strident legend of a man who became a saint, killing a dragon, murdering it right there, and it's surrounded by beautiful flowers. So it's a juxtaposition of the act of slaying a dragon with the beautiful flowers that caught my eye. And that's all in the small details. I mean, the name of the mall is much bigger than those, but that really wasn't why I was making the picture.
Mm-hmm.
I was making the picture because of the abundance of small details. And as you read a picture, You don't read everything instantaneously. You study it. If you read a picture too quickly, you're liable to miss detail that's not emphasized, but is there.
Mm-hmm.
You want to add anything to this?
No, the only thing is that the issue of um, the little angel's face at the top, which is quite common, but that I see every so often. That's the you know that's the only thing that I note.
Okay.
Ah,
We were in a little town called Karlovy in Croatia. We were on our way by car, no, by bus from Zagreb to Plitvice National Park. And we stopped for a rest stop at a little service station. They had a restroom. This was not a big town, but it was the only place that they could stop. And there was out back, most people, use the restroom and they're buying snacks and things. And I'm out there with my camera and I walked around behind and there was this old car. It was a Mercedes and it was being restored. And you can see that in the detail, there's the story here of craft. There is a tray, there's a sponge, there's an old glove, and there's a lot of work yet to be done.
right.
In the detail here. And of course, I emphasize, I saw that the light, you have to look at what light is withholding and what light is revealing. And in this case, in the lighted area, you see a lot of corrosion and maybe places where he's already scraped or about to scrape. And it's really the story of craftsmanship and where craftsmanship must begin, the need and the purpose for craftsmanship. It asks questions of the viewer. How much is this? How long is it going to take to do this? Who's doing it? Maybe they've been working on it for years, or maybe he started yesterday. And then when you add context to this thing has probably been here during the war. They had a terrible civil war there in the 90s.
Right.
And just across the street from this rest stop, there was a house full of bullet holes, and I had photographed that, and that picture was in my gallery on P-Base, the previous photograph. And I think you or someone else left a comment that the meaning of this picture is affected by viewing the previous picture.
Right.
So not only will context be affected by your knowledge of the picture itself or the circumstances under which the picture was made, but tangential information of things that might be nearby.
Right.
That would affect it. You and I shot together. Remember what?
Cursor. There we go. Okay.
I'm bringing it back.
Okay.
The whole point here is someone took the time or the craft to put tears, white tears, coming out of the eyes, which are filled in with white here, on this door knocker, on this home in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. Tim and I and our wives were visiting this place, and we both shot it in, I believe, in color, and we both used the picture in black and white because in the book that you and I have done called Side by Side, I have this photograph in full color, and you have yours in black and white. And I envied your picture in black and white. So when they came to say, I converted this to black and white. I like it much better in black and white because the wood, which is a rich, mellow color, really conflicts with the sadness that we wanted to evoke with this picture. it's an incongruous detail. You don't usually see door knockers that weep, and yet this one does. And again, it's a small detail, but by coming in close to it, it's emphasized. And of course, the contrast between the white paint and the black and white surroundings is profound. Tim, you want to add anything?
Well, and I see I mean, I agree, and my memory was of that image in color, and I had forgotten that I did it in black and white. But for me, there's also the contrast of the clearly old face ornament and the relatively new lock right below it.
That's what someone went down to the hardware store in 1942 and bought that lock, right?
Right. Yeah.
The knocker's probably been there right from
those
1920 or whenever the.
Right.
This is an image I made in the Agra Fort in India, and I was up high on a. No, I wasn't up high. That was a different picture that I made there. I used a long lens to reach out and come right up next to the skin of an elephant. I have to get this here. It's off, okay. To reveal the pores of an elephant. We generally see an elephant as an elephant. We rarely study its pores, which are quite large. And when we come in on that, it becomes incongruous. And another incongruity, of course, is the decorative paint that's been sprayed in between the eyes, because this is at festival time, and this is a decorative Indian symbol, and is placed between the eyes in red and green. And you see only one eye, which echoes the round decoration. And there are a little bit of color here, blue and red, but the bulk of it is all texture and pores and texture. It's revealing something, again, through detail that you normally wouldn't see because you're concentrating on the whole. Tim, anything to add to
Well,
that?
and the cultural detail.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued about how they got the paint on and not in the pores, which it looks like they did up in the red part. But essentially, that gives you that detail. Those details make it more than just a picture of an elephant. It makes it a cultural image too.
That's true. I remember I was making this picture, I believe it was in Barstow, California. You and I were there on a trip with Dave Wyman's group, and we were in a junkyard. We're always in junkyards on Wyman's trips. And there was this old red truck. And I noticed the play of light and shadow on the old dashboard at this time of day. And I noticed the detail in those gauges. And so once again, I was able to come in, and this is called framing within a frame. Of course, the exterior is framed by the shape of the camera's frame.
Right.
But the shadows were framing it as well. And that pulls your eye further towards the detail. And you see details such as the corrosion, the rust, the dirt, and then the gauge. And then you start looking at the numbers and you say, this truck only has 5,000 miles. Well, of course, that was the trip meter. And this here, they probably turned the meter over 4 or 5 or 20 times because this thing had a long life. But now it's dead. It's not going anywhere. It's done. It's over. And the detail tells us that. We see it as we would look at something that is a derelict, gone. Tim, you want to add?
And its top speed is 60, which places it in history.
Yes, it does. Good catch. I made this in Vientiane, Laos, and we were there together. We were in this temple, and I photographed not the entire Buddha statue,
Cursor.
but the hand of the Buddha, because some worshiper had placed a fragpani blossom in the hand. And the fragpani is a very sacred flower in Hindu culture. It's essentially wishes good luck to anyone who holds it. And they placed it in the hand of the Buddha. And again, I shot this in color. And for years, I have displayed this picture in color. And in fact, a book publisher saw it. It was a mystery called Disco for the Departed. And the publisher of this book wanted to use it on the cover. And I granted permission, and it was used in full color because the flower is pink and the hand is bronze. But when I abstracted it in black and white, the power of that flower goes beyond just the fragpani. I mean, it's a symbol of love, a symbol of respect, a symbol of giving and leaving, and a symbol of faith. It becomes far more symbolic in abstract form. And the detail that I left in the picture is just enough detail to support that idea. Nothing else conflicts. Tim, you want to add anything to that one?
Well, you know, I go to soul. It's a symbol of soul.
Yeah,
and faith. You said it in faith. I'd say soul.
Yep.
I love it. Whoa.
My most thought-provoking image, at least as far as I am concerned, of this set of 12 images is this one here. I made this in Antwerp, Belgium. There was a mime sitting outside of the Antwerp Cathedral. And inside of this cathedral are many, many religious paintings by such artists as Peter Paul Rubens. And this mime is echoing the subject matter of one of those famous Rubens paintings, the Madonna and Child. And since it is a painting, she has used makeup to cover herself in material resembling paint, as well as the Christ Child, which is a doll that she's holding. And I moved in on her. I saw this paint as detail, and I moved in to emphasize the textures and the fineness and the placement, but more important, the contrast between the paint and the one touch of humanity she left unpainted, the lower lip. That's so she could sip from her water periodically. And I photographed her for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I was alone with her there, and she never moved. And when I left, I placed some coins in her little can that she had, and her hand moved, and it gave me her card with the words "thank you" on it in English. I never forgot that moment.
Move your cursor. Yeah, thank you.
And many years later, I received a message in my P-Base gallery. Another street performer in Antwerp saw this picture, and he had to write to me. He said, this woman was found murdered 3 years later.
Oh.
She was a victim of a cult.
Right.
And it changed the whole context for me.
Right.
He said, this picture posted here is the only memory we have of her. You do her honor.
Right.
By putting it here. So the subsequent meaning of my careful contrast of the mouth and the paint, again, it pales next to this information. And needless to say, I emphasized, I revised my captions on P-Base to give this additional context, which added to and even changed the meaning. But this picture to me works on many, many levels. It is an image that is abstract. it is incongruous, it is enormously rich in human values. It is an image that relies on detail to express its meaning. And that caps this episode or this module on detail. Thank you.
And my first impression was it was a statue or a piece of art. And then the detail of those lips just made me, it was a jaw dropper to me. Without the history, without the tragedy, it was just like, oh, that's a human. That's real. Wow.
And she did this every day and
Wow.
sat there in the hot sun.
Wow. Well, okay. That concludes today's conversation.